Hi, I'm John Matthews, veteran law enforcement officer, winery owner, and your host for the podcast version of True Crime and Wine. And I'm pleased that you've joined us for this very unique podcast where we feature the fascinating world of serial killers while we enjoy award-winning wine. So why serial killers and wine? Well, the answer is really simple. I'm the only winemaker in the world that's ever captured a serial killer. And no, I didn't use wine. So this is real true crime and real wine. Each episode, myself and Brandy Diamond, the popular podcast host of Texas Wine and True Crime, which you can also hear on all of our podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. Together, we take you on a journey profiling some of the world's most unique serial killer cases while enjoying our favorite wines. I've got my favorite one today, a Casaro Winery wine. It's our multi-award-winning Giraldago. It's called Crime Scene. And yes, I made it for my true crime lovers. Now, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but grab yourself a glass of Killer Cabernet or Murderous Merlot and join us on this podcast version of True Crime and Wine. In this episode, we're going to take you on a journey profiling the life and crimes of Herbert Mullin. Now he's a serial killer that you probably have never heard of. He's a rare, delusional serial killer, and not in the sense of I'm going to plead insanity to try to save myself from the death sentence, which he did, but a rare delusional serial killer that really was delusional. He thought that by killing, he was going to stop earthquakes. He thought by killing, he was going to save the world from pollution. I want to welcome in my co-host, Brandy Diamond. And Brandy, this is a really unique case. And even after he was captured, the police didn't realize the extent of his crimes. Because get this, in addition to Mullin being delusional, his killing spree overlapped with the killing spree of infamous serial killer Ed Kemper. They were killing in the same place at the same time, and the police were totally confused. How about that? Two serial killers in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, I would like to talk to you one day, John, about how statistically rare or unrare that is. But Mullin is delusional, very different than the other serial killers we've spoken about. And like you said, Ed Kemper is actually committing crimes and murders at this time in San Francisco. So it will be very interesting to see the overlap of this and what police thought when they finally found Mullin.
Yeah, a very interesting overlapping case of two serial killers in the same place at the same time. And we're going to work through the entire case right now.
All right, John. So we are talking about Herbert Mullin today, born on April 18th, 1947 in Salinas, California. Died August 18th, 2022. So not that long ago, just a few years ago in Stockton, California. Now, I thought it was really interesting because we talked about the fact that he was committing murders at the same time Ed Kemper was in the same area. We have total of 13 murdered people by this guy in California from October 72 to February of 73.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. 13 people.
Period.
I mean, yeah. So I'm trying to put in my mind, how long how long has this guy been going? How many victims do we have? And he claimed that his killings prevented earthquakes through human sacrifice driven by schizophrenic delusions. And I do find it very interesting, John, that he was born on the anniversary of the 1906 San Francisco earthquake.
Yeah, and I think that was a trigger that really started it all. And I don't know who put it in his head. Obviously, he didn't know that, but somebody put it in his head. And I think with his mental health issues, that was something that really drove the anniversary of the San Francisco earthquake, drove his entire life and drove his delusions. And so as he got older and as the delusions got worse, he really thought, if I kill people, then maybe it'll stop earthquakes. Kind of strange, but again, this guy was delusional, schizophrenic. He heard voices, and we're gonna get into that. Now, his father was a World War II veteran. He was stern, but certainly not abusive by any counts. And the family actually moved to San Francisco before he was even 5 years old. But then he grew up in Felton, California, not far away. And this is going to be one of those guys that when we look back at their early life and their childhood, we're not seeing very many red flags. One of those unique cases, sometimes, Brandy, we're checking all the boxes, right?
Right.
You know, 10 minutes into the show, oh, wow, this is going to be a bad person. He or she is going to kill a lot of people. But with Herbert Mullin, he was very popular at San Lorenzo Valley High School. He played football. And get this, at 16, he was voted most likely to succeed.
Mm.
So his peers, he was well adapted, obviously a good communicator, and his peers voted him most likely to succeed. I just found that absolutely amazing, because how many serial killers have we covered that had just horrific upbringings,
Yeah.
abuse, poverty, sexual assault, everything else.
Well, and not only that, they were kind of rejected by their peers, typically, is what we've seen, right?
Isolated,
not socialized. But Mullen started showing paranoid schizophrenic symptoms in his teens. And I find this interesting because I think when, children, adolescents, when they're kind of growing up into those really important years, they start doing things that maybe some people think are just behavioral issues, right? Or maybe they think they're just being rebellious. But his best friend, Dean Richardson's death in 1965 in a car accident really triggered those obsessions with reincarnation, built shrines, which he starts to withdraw from society. So we are starting to see some of these changes in him in his teen years.
Yeah, his delusions do start. He starts seeing those, and I think they gradually get worse. But how many times have we seen that? A precipitating stressor, or what we call a triggering event. And here you see it, his best friend killed in a car accident, and then all of a sudden, he really takes a turn and starts going downhill. And you can see that. I mean, if you've had teenagers, that's a very fragile time in their life. And when they experience something really traumatic, like the death of a close friend, we can see issues start to appear.
So he ends up getting out of high school. Now he's
graduating.
Graduates,
Graduates,
goes into college, earns an associate's degree in civil highway technology from Cabrillo College in 1967. Experimented with some drugs, LSD, a little marijuana, exasperates the mental issues, right? So we have undiagnosed schizophrenic, undiagnosed delusional, things that are happening. And so now he's using drugs. Thoughts on that?
And isn't that kind of the chicken or the egg?
Yep.
The way that I usually see this is these individuals know something's wrong, right? And they're experimenting with drugs in a way that they end up saying, maybe I can self-medicate. And I've seen this over and over and over again. So you've got on one side, they're a little bit delusional. They're hearing these voices. They know they're not normal. Maybe the stressors of the death of his friend. He's obviously still able to function, earning an associate's degree, right? In just 2 years later. But you've got a dual track there. The drug use, and is that really hurting some of the mental health issues that he's having, or is it the mental health issues and he's trying to self-treat?
Yeah.
And you see this just getting worse. 65, 67. By 69, he's only 22, but he's committed to Mendocino State Hospital and diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic. And so he's getting worse. He's getting worse. He starts to blame drugs in his life for some of his failures. But then he got a tattoo that said legalize acid.
Yeah.
So he's really conflicted at this point. So from his teen years with the death of his friend, he's trying to fight through it. He's getting involved in drugs, but he also realizes things aren't right. I'm hearing
Yeah.
voices, and now he's trying to treat that with some of his drug use.
Yeah, and I almost wonder, like, well, I mean, at least we're talking about someone who has now been put into a facility, been actually diagnosed with a condition. So, we're going to talk about this, but I do wonder, was he ever properly medicated? Was he ever, how did he feel about his own mental issues and using the drugs? Maybe the drugs just let him forget about it. Maybe it stopped the voices on some level a little bit for him. I'm not really sure, but we don't see a lot in the childhood, but now we see a lot going into the late years, early 20s. What are you picking up now as we're kind of going and profiling this guy?
I think it's that conflict is what I'm looking at. The conflict between, am I hearing the voices? Is that because I've got mental health issues? Am I hearing the voices because of my drug use? Does my drug use help eliminate the voices? Does self-medication work? Is it making it worse? Am I having these LSD trips and now I'm hearing even more voices? So I think this is a very, very confusing time. And I've worked with many, many people with mental health issues over the years. They don't like their mental health medication. They don't like how it makes them feel. It makes them slow. It makes them lethargic. And then what do? They stop taking their prescribed medication and they start self-medicating. So don't know if it happened in this case, but that is very, very common. So when we start looking at the boxes there, checking the boxes on early life and teen years, substance abuse by the parents, no, but certainly by him. Abusive family members, no. Mental health issues, yes. We know he's already committed by age 22. We don't know about any possible traumatic brain injury. He seems like a fairly normal, well-adapted individual, being voted most likely to succeed when he was 16. I don't have his IQ down, but obviously he's average or above. Graduated from high school, got an associate's degree in engineering, right?
Yeah.
Social skills. Obviously, he's got some good social skills on the football team, popular enough to get voted most likely to succeed. So he's checking some boxes, not checking others, but certainly not checking enough that I think it would lead us to believe that something horrible is going to come because of his life.
Yeah, and I think it all goes back to the delusions, right? The descent really into his delusional state. He ends up getting a job at Goodwill Industries after, college. But John, he's committed to 5 mental hospitals, by his mid-20s.
Right. And, there's a couple red flags right there. He's got a high school degree, right? This is the 1960s. He's got a high school degree. He's also already got an associate, but he goes to work for Goodwill Industries. We're not talking about a corporate job. We're not talking about an engineering job. So right there, they don't line up, right? As you're looking at this, you're going, wow, this guy seems fairly intelligent, fairly articulate, got a degree, can go places, but isn't. And then we realize by his mid-20s, remember, he was 22 when he first got committed. By his mid-20s, he's committed 5 times. So he's going downhill very, very quickly at this age.
Most of the time he was discharged as no harm despite showing the symptoms for his schizophrenia. By 1972 at 25, he's living back with his parents in Felton, and then stopped using drugs in 1973, but then the hallucinations intensified.
And I think he was struggling with that, right?
Yeah.
And I think he was struggling and he was trying to figure out, are the drugs causing this? Are the drugs helping it? He's had several years of it. He's been committed 5 times, but as far as we know, he hasn't committed any crimes or hurt anybody. So you can see why medical staff went, yes, he's delusional, but he's not a harm or he's not a threat, at least up to this point. And so he keeps getting released, even though his hallucinations keep getting worse. And by this time, we know that he's telling doctors that he's getting telepathic commands from his father. So his father's not telling him to do things, but he's getting these telepathic commands from his father. So we can really see this kind of descent into darkness, right?
So, John, I have a question about that. So his father not being abusive, but maybe very demanding, maybe asking a lot of his son, we'll just kind of say going that direction. Do you think there was some childhood trauma with his father on some level of that, and that's why he hears the demands coming from him? I mean, I find it interesting they all just come from him.
Yeah, I didn't see any connection. And a lot of times with serial killers, we see the mom connection, right? Very rarely hear about the dad. So again, we try to bring you unique and different cases on this show. And this certainly is a unique case where he was hearing something from his dad. I don't know. It could have been he looked up to his dad. His dad was a World War II veteran. So you never know. It certainly wasn't, at least at this point, like Son of Sam, where he said that he was hearing and taking orders from his dog, right?
Yeah.
So the dad's involved, but certainly we've got some big issues here.
So the delusions again continue. He had stopped the drug use, so he becomes obsessed with birth date, earthquake, Vietnam War deaths, prevented disasters like the earthquakes, but needed replacements as the war ended. Human sacrifice. So he's thinking of these very strange, worldly events, right?
And putting them together in really weird combinations.
Yes.
So let's kind of break this down a little bit. So he told doctors, I was born on the anniversary of the San Francisco earthquake, one of the worst in U.S. history. Tremendous death and destruction. And he says, I was born, and that's a sign. That's a sign. And in order to stop earthquakes, he believed there needed to be some other traumatic event going on somewhere in the world. So he felt as long as the Vietnam War was going on, that's why they weren't having earthquakes anymore in San Francisco. So you see these kind of really strange links. Now, we're getting to the end of the Vietnam War. So now his brain is telling him, whoa, the war's ending. What's going to stop the earthquakes? And in his mind, he said, I've got to have there's got to be another tragedy to stop these earthquakes. And in his mind, he felt that human sacrifices would stop the earthquakes. Now, wait a second. I'll let you talk about that whole thing. But let me throw another curveball at you, because at the same time, he's also worried about pollution in the world and that people are destroying the world by polluting it.
Okay. Which they are, and we've been talking about pollution for I don't know how many years and see commercials, and so but I do find it interesting that his tendencies and his thoughts are around like worldly issues, like around people, people inflicting, right? People have to
Yep.
pollute in order for the world to be polluted, right? So, um, I don't know. Is it going to increase a hate for people? Is it going, like you mentioned, a human sacrifice? Why people? Is it because we are the evil of the world that are causing these problems? I just find this very interesting of how his mind is really just going to how to make a better world by getting rid of people.
Yeah. And he's not, I think it was a good point what you just said. He's not focusing on him, his family, his school, his church. Most of these killers focus on their immediate environment. Matter of fact, I can't think of one that we've covered. This is our third season now. I can't think of one serial killer that we covered that was worried about worldwide events, right? That was worried about huge natural disasters or war or pollution, So very, very interesting to kind of look at this, but the delusions are on a very grand scale, let's say.
Yes.
Right?
Well, he starts taking this into his own hands on October 13th, 1972. Lawrence White. John, is this the first known victim? Do we believe there were any others, or do we think this is the earliest?
I think this is the earliest and everything. And just to kind of close up that where his mind is at this point, because we do have a couple other things that are coming into play. Remember, they kept releasing him and saying that he wasn't a harm. Well, you can see that because he hadn't harmed anybody. He hadn't harmed himself. So the police at this point, when they're involved with him at all, just consider him a drug addict. He's not a harm. The hospitals are telling him he's not a harm, and the doctors. And it was also during this time that in California, the governor, then Reagan, started closing a lot of these mental health institutions. So now you've got somebody that has been committed 5 times up to this point, but he's got nowhere to go. He's got nowhere to go to get treatment now. So this is where we start seeing that nexus of his personal life, current events, world events really coming together.
Yeah.
You see it started with the death of his friend years earlier, and you see this delusions based on big worldwide events. He keeps getting sent back into these mental institutions, but when the mental institutions close, what does he do? He no longer has those legal drugs to keep him calm, and so he's starting to kind of lose it here. And the first victim is Lawrence White. And I think one of the interesting things when we start going through the victims, Brandy, is there's no pattern. No pattern whatsoever. We're not talking Son of Sam, delusional, going for couples, lovers in New York. I mean, very, very much a pattern, really showing that he wasn't delusional at all. In Herbert Mullin, in his case, these victims are very randomized. And the first one was a white male, 55. He was a vagrant, just a homeless person. And Mullin beat him in the head with a baseball bat. But it wasn't a random attack he just saw a homeless guy and beat him and killed him. Mullin actually parked his car, put up the hood, like he was having car trouble, and waited till Lawrence White walked up. He waited till this homeless guy walked up to him, and White said, "Hey, I'll help you fix your car if you give me a ride." Mullin said, "Okay." And when White started to help him fix the car, he beat him to death with a baseball bat, and then drug his body into the woods where they found it the next day.
I do find it interesting that he lured. That's luring in a way,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
You're setting
No.
it up. And so to me, that's a little organized in the mind of, strategically trying to lure a victim. But I get a baseball bat, like you just want to beat someone to death. So this first one throws me off a little bit.
Well, you can see these delusions, I think, right?
Right.
Because, on one side, you've got organized behavior,
Mhm.
pulling the car over and pretending it's broke. It's not.
Mhm.
Carrying a baseball bat with you, believing that human sacrifice is going to stop earthquakes, and then beating him to death. But get this, later on he claimed that Lawrence White, the guy he murdered, looked like Jonah from the Bible, and that Lawrence White sent him a telepathic message that said, quote, "Hey man, pick me up and throw me over the boat. Kill me so others will be saved."
Oh my God, John, this guy's ill. Like, this is a fully mental breakdown of all rationalities, in my opinion. Jonah from the Bible. This is just so far, and that he told him to do this to him, and just very interesting.
Yeah, he
Very
asked for it.
interesting.
He basically said the guy asked for it. I wouldn't have
Wow.
done it, but he looked like Jonah, and he used words like Jonah. Pick me up and throw me over the boat. Please kill me to save others. So again, in his mind, this is where Herbert Mullin is in October of 1972.
John, 11 days later, we have another victim, Mary Guilfoyle, October 24th, 1972. Mullin decided this is the time to commit my second murder, to basically test the hypothesis that he was being commanded by the voice of his father to, again, make that sacrifice and stop the environment from being polluted.
Right. He's got these two things, these two issues in his head. I can stop earthquakes and I can stop the environment from being polluted if I just kill people. Brandy, this is amazing because he's testing a hypothesis here. He's actually conducting a test by killing a person. So he picks up Mary Guilfoyle, a Cabrillo College student, which that's where he went to school, and offered her a ride. While they were driving, he just reached over and stabbed her in the chest. But then he stopped and he disemboweled her to examine her organs to determine if his theory on environmental pollution was correct. So he cut her open looking for pollution to try to prove, oh, yes, there is a link here. People are polluting the world, and if I kill people, I can stop the world from being polluted. They didn't find her body till February of 1973, months after the homicide.
Well, I would comment on this, John, but like you said, we don't need to get in the minds or try to get into the minds of these people because we'll never understand how you disembowel her to examine whether or not that's going to stop. Only he can probably understand what that means and why. But that's very interesting.
Well, but that's a great point, Brandy. When we're profiling in law enforcement, you have to try to pick up the pieces that you think you can run with, and then you have to know to leave the other pieces behind. You're never going to be able to rationalize somebody that's killing to stop earthquakes or to stop pollution. And so you got to kind of discount that and stick to the facts and stick to the crime scene and stick to the evidence. And let me tell you, as we start profiling that, we've got 2 murders in the books now. And when we start looking at that, it's very confusing to the police, right? There's no consistency in victimology. White male, 55, white female, young college student, homeless person that comes to your aid, college student that you try to aid by giving a ride. Weapons are different, a baseball bat, stabbing through the heart, right?
Right.
Post-mortem mutilation to look for pollution, right? So
Right.
as we're trying to look at these first two cases, it's not a whole lot to work with and not a whole lot to go on because they're so varied. And then when you throw into it what they don't know now, but they learn later, that there's telepathic commands from his father, and he's doing it to prevent earthquakes and pollution, you can see why authorities would be really, really frustrated and not even able to link these first two homicides together. On each episode of True Crime and Wine, it wouldn't be True Crime and Wine without both, we feature one of our Casaro Winery branded wines. And today I've got the crime scene. It is a dry red Teraldigo, and it's almost garnet colored grapes and some earthy notes and flavors that pop out like blackberries and cherries and plums. And this medium bodied fruit usually has low tannins, and it pairs magnificently with like spaghetti carbonara, complementing the bacon and the peppery notes. So why don't you try some of our Teraldigo, our crime scene wine branded just for our true crime lovers? You can find it all at CasaroWines.com. CASSARO, CasaroWines.com. Salute.
All right, John. So we are going to be talking about the third victim, a Catholic priest. He was actually killed in the confessional. So we're in November 2nd of 1972. This is at the time, this is Father Henry Tomei. Mullin starts having doubts about the hallucination and the instructions that are coming from his father. So he drives to St. Mary's Catholic Church in Los Gatos to confess to a father, a priest, in a confessional. But he said that Father Tomei volunteered to be the next sacrifice. He hit, kicked, and stabbed him to death before fleeing unnoticed. So you have him going to a Catholic church to talk about the hallucinations and the instructions from his father, maybe to get some help. I don't know. Maybe that's kind of what he's thinking, or at least some advice. So yeah, a lot of people go to churches when they're feeling in doubt and need some guidance, but then he ends up killing him, John.
Yeah, again, that's just this weird dichotomy that we're seeing with this individual. He knows something's wrong, right? He knows something wrong. And a lot of the mentally ill folks that I've worked with in the past, they know it. They know they need to be on medication, whether prescribed or self-medicated or whatever. They feel something's wrong. He obviously knows something's wrong because he drives to a Catholic church and he says, I'm doubting these hallucinations. I'm doubting what my dad is telling me telepathically. Let me go talk with somebody. That seems good, right?
Right.
That seems good, and wow, you're getting help, and you're going to get advice, and maybe you'll get some assistance from the church, or maybe they'll put you into a program or offer something up. And then during it, his delusions take over.
Yeah.
During confession, the delusions take over, and he says, "Oh, Father Tomei, volunteer to be my next sacrifice." Well, it's just like what happened with the vagrant, right?
Mm-hmm,
He
right.
said the vagrant looked like Jonah and said, "Pick me up, throw me overboard, save others." And I can see a Catholic priest in a confessional talking about, a savior, and talking
Mm-hmm.
about spirituality and talking about saving mankind. But in his delusional mind,
Mhm.
he took it like, don't pick on the world, don't kill anybody else. You can take me for your sacrifice. He hit him, he kicked him, he stabbed him to death. So he had a knife with him, he had a
Yeah.
weapon with him. Part of him was, I need help, but he
Mhm.
had a weapon with him, and then he just fled the church. So again, for police, totally in the dark. Look at the 3 murders so far. A vagrant on the street beat with a baseball bat. A young female college co-ed stabbed in the car during a car ride as she's just trying to get somewhere on campus. And now a Catholic priest in his own confessional beat to death.
John, do you ever, let me see how I can ask this question. So I think there are serial killers we've covered and future ones we will cover that loved murder, right? There was something they needed to satisfy their need to commit these crimes.
Yep.
Do you think this is a serial killer by happenstance? Do you think the delusions and what he's doing is something he really wants to do? Or do you think this is something that is being caused by mental illness and it just happens to be murder?
Yeah, I certainly don't see any indication that he loves it, right? I
Okay.
don't see any indication like we see with other serial killers that they need to kill, that they want to kill, that they enjoy killing. Maybe they're projecting someone they don't like into the person that they're killing, that they're seeking out the victims. I seen this, especially this last one. He's conflicted. He's
Mhm.
going to church for help. He's going to confess his sins. He's going to ask for advice, but the delusions, the voices take over. The voices say, wait a minute, you don't need advice from this guy. He's volunteering to be the next sacrifice. Go ahead and kill him. Make the world better. So, no, I certainly don't see that Rodney Alcala mentality of he is a predator that is constantly on the prowl.
Mhm.
I see this as a very sick individual that really is listening to the voices in his head.
Well, maybe people will think different when we say in 1973 in January, he actually commits 5 murders in one day. So maybe some people will think, well, maybe he did enjoy killing, and maybe you can um, tell us a little more about that. But we have random victims here, John. We have Jim Gianeri, a high school friend who introduced him, to drugs years earlier. He shoots him. Joan Gianari just happened to be at home.
His wife, yep.
His wife shot as well. Kathleen Francis, a friend of Jim's, shot and stabbed multiple times. Damon Francis, a 4-year-old son of Kathleen, shot and stabbed. And then David Francis, a 9-year-old, the son of Kathleen, also shot and stabbed. So we have 5 murders in one day.
Yeah, let me kind of unpack this for you a little bit because it's very interesting. So, Mullin is thinking back on his life. And remember how I said he was tornated? Or is it delusions before the LSD and the drugs? Or what's the combination? Is it prescribed medication? Is it self-prescribed medicating? He struggled with this for a decade now at this point almost. So he starts thinking, he goes, that Jim Gianera, that kid from high school, he's the first one that gave me marijuana. So the drugs is what caused the mental illness. So I'm going to go make him pay for me being a drug addict and me being mentally ill and me having hallucinations. So he kind of remembers because, again, he graduated in what was it, 65, I think. This is 8 years later. Kind of remembers where Jim lives. So he drives to where he thinks Jim lives, and he gets pretty close. And he goes up to the house that he thinks Jim's house because why is he going there? He's mad. But is he going to kill him? We don't know yet. But he's mad because he believes if Jim hadn't given him those drugs in high school, he wouldn't be in this situation right now. So he goes up to the front door, but it's not Jim. It's Kathleen Francis. Well, Kathleen just happens to know Jim and Joan. They live right down the street. So Mullin actually got very close, right? He got very close to where Jim lived. So Kathleen goes, oh, yeah, I know Jim. I know his wife. They're actually 3 or 4 doors down. So if you just go down there, you're going to find him. So Mullin drives down there. He confronts Jim and says, it's because of you. I'm a drug addict and I'm mentally ill and I'm having hallucinations and I'm killing people. This is all because of you. Right? Jim says, dude, we were high school kids and tried some drugs. I didn't have anything to do with your hallucinations. I don't have anything to do. I've been seeing you in years.
Wow.
But Mullin says, wrong answer, and shoots him and kills him. So Mullin now is believing, yep, this is the guy that did it to me, so he's going to pay. That's what's going on in his mind. That's why I tell you, Brandy, don't ever get in their minds, right? Don't ever. That it is not a good place to be. So he shoots Jim. Well, he hears something in the other room. He didn't know it, but Jim's wife was home. She tries to get away, barricades herself in the bathroom. He kicks down the door and shoots and kills Joan.
Okay.
So now he's got 2 victims that he killed for whatever reason. And again, we may never know, never figure it out. It could simply be in his sick head. He goes back to Kathleen Francis's house. You know, the lady he originally went to when he was looking for Jim. He has no relationship with her at all. Has no idea, never met her before a few minutes earlier. Goes in there and shoots her and stabs her multiple times. He then also shoots and stabs her 4-year-old son, Damon, and her 9-year-old son, David. This is 5 murders within minutes, all because he blamed his hallucinations, his mental health problems, and his drug use on an old high school friend.
Well, yeah, that's a lot to unpack. And the returning to her house has me a little, I mean, I think he had every intention of confronting Jim. He brought a gun with him, right?
Yep.
So I think he was planning to hurt Jim. I don't think if Jim said, okay, you're right, I am responsible for all of this, if that would have even made a difference, right? So
No.
it doesn't even matter what he would have said, but he returns to her. So then I think to myself, a maybe more organized killer would think, well, she saw me. So because she saw me and because I just did this, I'm going to have to murder her and her entire family to make sure that they can't report me in the area. But that's logical thinking. I don't think he's thinking this. So, John, why do you think he returned?
Yeah, I have no idea, because I agree with you. I don't think it was logical thinking, because then if you go down that path, well, she saw me, so she could put me here at the murders. That seems too normal, too organized, too, too premeditated. But do you then project that onto the children? Well, the children saw me, so I need to kill them. I guess I need to kill everyone that saw me. I don't know at this point what the delusions were or how they affected him. I think it's overkill, killing the wife.
Yeah.
right? I
Right.
can see maybe you've got 7 years of hatred built up. Maybe you really do feel and I've seen this with mass shootings, Brandy. Let me I'll give you an example. So you get fired from your job.
Mhm.
Now you can't find another job. You don't have any income. And you got to provide for your wife and you got to provide for your family, but you've got no money coming in and the bills are piling up, and then they're repossessing your car, and then they're going to repossess your house, and then your wife says, hey, if you can't work and you can't make money and you can't pay for things, I'm going to leave you and I'm going to take the kids. And so you have this downward spiral, right?
Right.
Who started that spiral? It wasn't you for not doing whatever got you fired or doing whatever got you fired. Who started that spiral?
The firing, the employer.
Right. The employer, the
Hmm.
guy in HR, the president of the company, whoever fired that individual. And this builds up and builds up and builds up. And I've seen this over and over again in mass shootings. There's a precipitating stressor and there's somebody that gets blamed, and that's who they're going to go target. So I've seen that. I can understand him going, wow, if my high school friend didn't give me these drugs, I would not be in this situation.
Hmm.
But
Right.
now he's killing everybody. He's killing his friend, his friend's wife, a lady he's never met before, and her 2 kids. Totally delusional.
Well, and that was a very good comparison of that, because you see that in mass shootings, right? Someone who maybe they've never even met them at work. I mean,
Yeah.
people walk into facilities that are post office, right? Postal services. I mean, there's many roles in these companies, and they just go in and start shooting. They start with the one that they feel like, offended them or got them
Right.
in this situation, but then they just continue with no rhyme or reason to shoot others.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Collateral damage.
collateral
right?
damage.
Yep.
John, we have February 10th. Okay, so now we have this tragedy. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just comment, because
Sure.
now 5 people murdered. Okay, it's
Right.
different. You murder a homeless guy. The college co-ed's going to get some attention and get some newspaper stuff. We now have 5 murders, right, on one street.
Yeah.
That's a lot of attention. Are the police now honing in on Mullin? Absolutely not. Right?
Right.
Matter of fact, when they looked at the 5 slain people, they simply said it must be drug related. It must be a drug deal gone bad. They did not connect the 2 crimes. They did not, and there's no way they could have. They did not connect the 5 murders with the murder of the priest in the confessional. They didn't connect it with the girl that was the co-ed at college. They didn't connect it with the vagrant, and there's no reason they would. What's our victimology? What's our crime scene? What's our geographic? Nothing. We've got
Nothing.
absolutely nothing at this point.
John, did they relate the murders on the same street to the same person, though?
They related them together.
Okay.
In that there must have been some drug deal gone bad, right?
Okay.
Very rare. 5 murders on one street. We know that Mullin, his high school friend, had access to drugs in high school. Maybe continued that. Maybe they found drugs in the house. Maybe that's where that link came in. But the police said, we've got 5 murders. We think they're drug related. So the offender probably was the same person, but it was probably a drug deal gone bad. But that has nothing to do with a priest and a co-ed and a homeless guy.
Yeah.
So you can see how none of this, I mean, as I'm going back to my profiling notes, and you know how he's talking about checking the boxes? What boxes? What
It's
boxes?
all over the place.
Yeah, it's all over the place. I don't even know what boxes to check here. The victims are different. The crime scenes are different. The weapons are different. Everything is different. Geographic profiling is different. I don't even know what boxes to check at this point.
So they're not putting all this together besides the 5 that are on the street. But then we've got, again, February 10th of 1973, 4 murders in one day. Robert Spector, 18 years old, white male. Brian Scott Card, 19, white male. David Olicker, white male, 18. Mark Drebelby, white male, 15. So again, we've got 4 murders one day. I'm going to assume they were all not together, or maybe you can clarify a little bit of that. But what do we know about this?
Yeah, and so now you're not talking about a priest or a co-ed. You've got teenagers, and yeah, they were all together. And this is, to me, as delusional as it gets. But I don't know how you get any more delusional, right? This case is all over the board. So Mullin decides one day, I'm going to go hiking. And he goes out to a state park outside of Santa Cruz. And he comes upon 4 teenagers who he said were illegally camping. Now, some parks you can camp in and some you can't, and some you need a permit. I don't know. But Mullin took it upon himself to say that he was a park ranger and that he ordered them to leave the park because they were polluting the forest.
Okay.
These are 4 kids, right?
Yeah.
What did you say? 15 to 18 or something like that. 4 kids, 15 to 19, I think they were. And what do you think 4 teenagers do when a guy who walks up in regular clothes, right? No badge, no uniform, no gun, says he's a park ranger and tells them to leave? What do you think the kids do?
I think they probably didn't do anything. They probably are like, who are you to tell us what to do? We're going to stay right where we are.
Laughed at him, maybe made fun of him, refused to leave, went back to doing what they were doing. That to me is a very normal reaction for teenagers, right?
Yes.
With all the kids I've had teenagers around for years and decades, and that is a very normal reaction. And I can see the kids doing that, right? I can see these 18 and 19-year-old kids just get away from us, man. You're nobody. We don't care about you.
Yeah. Well, there's 4 of them too, right?
4 of them.
So they didn't feel like they wouldn't be able to take them, or if there was this guy. So they're probably just like, let's just ignore him, or and continue with what we're doing, and he'll just probably go away.
Yep. And he did go away until the next day. He returned with a .22 caliber pistol, went into their tent, and shot all 4 of them in the head. When he finished, he took the .22 caliber rifle that they had and $20 and left.
Okay, so now you have him taking things, a gun, money, but then he leaves and he's still thinking about the incident, grabs a gun, returns the next day. So what does that tell you as a profiling? Is this more organized? I mean, why doesn't he just forget about it? I mean, the delusions come and go, right?
It's the conflict with the delusions. Why did he kill them? Because they were illegally camping. What does illegally camping do? That adds to pollution. They're polluting the forest.
Okay, John. So talking about these 4 young men that he murdered, did he think he was doing something good here?
Yeah, I almost see Brandy like a hero complex coming out now for the first time. Certainly he's not a hero by killing a Catholic priest in a confessional, and not a hero by stabbing a co-ed in the heart, and not a hero by murdering 5 people, including 2 children. But again, these delusions of, I'm killing people for the better good. I'm killing people to stop them from polluting. And I see really in this case, it kind of like all coming together. He told them to leave. They didn't leave. I think it probably built up in him overnight, built up. I should have done something. They're polluting the park. They're going to ruin the park. I'm going to go back and do something. He brings a gun and he kills four innocent teenagers. So I almost see a hero type complex now arising in he thinks I'm stopping earthquakes, I'm making the world better, I'm stopping pollution, and that's why he's killing. Brandy, as you can see, I've got one of our True Crime and Wine logoed hoodies on. Weather was going to get a little cooler this weekend. I went on Shop True Crime. That's our website for all of our logoed items for True Crime and Wine. Shop True Crime. I went on Shop True Crime and I said, I need a hoodie. They're 25% off this month, and it's a little bit cooler. I'm getting a hoodie. I can't believe it came. It's great. It looks great. It's soft. So if you need a hoodie or any other of our True Crime and Wine paraphernalia or logoed items like our True Crime and Wine glasses, go to shoptruecrime.com. Shoptruecrime.com and get your True Crime and Wine logoed items.
So what do police know or think about this one, John? Finding these four boys.
Well, again, this is big news. 4 murders at one time in the state park. This is as big a news as the 5 murders that were of his friend and the other family. So there is a ton going on in law enforcement, but none of it is related. None of these crimes are related. And like we're going to talk about in just a minute here, and like we teased in the beginning, at the same time as you have these very random murders going on, you also have the killing of co-eds going on in the same area, but by a different serial killer. Ed Kemper is actually hunting and killing at the same time Herbert Mullin is killing, and the cops are getting it all confused. They don't know who they're dealing with or what kind of murderer they're dealing with. And Mullin, as we've said, has no pattern whatsoever.
Yeah, I can see how the police would feel a little all over the place with the victims of both of these guys. But we have a final victim, John, Fred Abbey Perez. He's a male, Hispanic male, 72 years old, a retired prize fighter. So Mullin was driving a station wagon around and noticed Perez working in his garden. He sees him, makes a U-turn, stops across the street, gets out of the car, places the rifle over the hood of the car, and shoots Perez one time in the heart. Gets back in the car and just drives away.
Yeah, as simple as that. I mean, he sees this poor man working in the garden, and for whatever reason, decides to stop and kill him. And he used the gun he took from those teenagers. That, he had the 22 pistol that he killed some of the other people with, his friend and the other family, and that was in the car. But the 22 rifle that he took from the teenagers, he simply got out, stopped the car, placed it over the hood, and shot this poor guy right through the heart, killing him as he worked in his garden. Again, this was an opportunistic crime, certainly something not planned at all. And was he in the middle of a delusion? Did he see this guy and for whatever reason think, oh, if I kill him, things are going to be better. I'm going to stop pollution. I'm going to stop earthquakes. But his downfall kind of came. He did this all of his murders were really in broad day, right? The killing of the vagrant was on the street, in the middle of the street. He did pick up the co-ed and killer in his car, so maybe there wouldn't be a lot of witnesses, but it wasn't like Kemper was doing. The murder of Father Tomei in the confessional was certainly in a very public place, and he could have been seen. We know the 5 murders in one day. He didn't try to cover them up at all. The 4 murders in the tent. So he's seeing or hearing these delusions and acting upon them. Well, in this case, a neighbor who lived across from Perez saw the whole thing. He witnessed the murder. He wrote down Mullin's license plate and a description of the vehicle and immediately called police and said, I just saw a murder happen right out front. Get people here. But I know I saw the guy who did it. I saw the car and I wrote down his license plate.
Wow.
Police put a description out immediately. And a patrol officer who was just cruising in the area saw Mullin, pulled him over, and arrested him. And he said Mullin was just quiet and docile.
Yeah.
No big deal. When he pulled Mullin over and got him out of the car, right on the seat next to him was the 22 pistol that he killed his friend's wife, and that family just a week before. So that gun was still sitting on the seat of the car. But Mullin didn't reach for it, attempt to use it, try to kill the officer, fight with the officer. He simply surrendered.
Well, and that also makes me think of, did he believe, did he really believe what he was doing was good?
It could be. It
You
could
know.
be. That hero complex could have progressed to the point where he went, well, you got me now, so no
Yeah,
big deal.
that's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, no fighting back, no trying to escape, and very, very interesting.
At least 2 weapons right there. He had the
Yeah.
rifle that he shot Perez with and the pistol he shot the other people with. So he could have done something. But then again, what's his delusion telling him? I don't know.
We don't know. So he's arrested. The officer arrests him, but they don't connect him to the other murders. They are just focusing on Perez at this time. So did they start to make connections? Like you said earlier, Ed Kemper was committing murders at this time. What are they thinking when they have him in custody?
Yeah, they really didn't. They had him on the Perez murder, and that's what they were going to charge him with and try to get him convicted of. But the MOs were so different. The victimology, the different locations. And you got to remember, Ed Kemper is killing young co-eds at this time. So certainly Mullin's second murder was a young co-ed, so we could see how they would get them confused. Maybe the vagrant on the street. Yeah, okay, maybe Kemper came upon him in an unusual circumstance and killed him, but that was with a baseball bat. So again, a different MO. So the police really had no idea until after they captured Kemper about 8 weeks later, started tying Kemper to Kemper's murders, and then figuring out, oh my God, this guy Mullin must be the one that is doing the other murders. White and Guilfoy and Tomei, Gianera and Francis, them. He must be doing these other murders. And then, of course, the teenagers in the park. And Perez at 13 murders over 4 months.
Wow.
But no consistent MO. He beat some to death. He stabbed others and shot them. So that certainly separated him from Ed Kemper's murders, right? Ed Kemper was very specific.
So did they start talking to him and asking him, did he confess to any of this? I know there was a trial. Did they realize very early on that he had a mental illness? What are police kind of thinking now?
Yeah, after he started talking to him, they certainly realized. They went back to look at his record. They found out that he had been institutionalized on at least 5 different occasions, that he was let go because he was not determined to be a harm or a threat to anyone. They found out he was a drug user. They learned about the connection with him and his friend who got him into drugs. So they kind of were right on that quintuple homicide. It was drug related in a way. They charged him with 10. and he admitted to all 10. His trial, of course, focused on his sanity. And the defense said he had delusions. Well, prosecutors said, no, Mullin brought weapons to the crime scene. He set up some of these crime scenes, like staging the car. He brought weapons to the confessional. He tried covering his tracks. And so that this meant the actions were premeditated. So he was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder, going after Jim Gianera, right? Because he said,
Right.
I went after him because he's the one that gave me drugs, and if it wasn't for him, I would never be in this situation. But they were also able to show, because he went back to Kathleen Francis's house. Remember, he had seen her, left, killed Gennaro and his wife. He went back to Kathleen's house. That was also premeditated. So he was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder, 8 counts of second-degree murder that the prosecutor said, okay, we can say these were impulsive. Later, he was convicted on another count of second-degree murder for Father Tomei. So, all in all, in 73, he was convicted of the 2 first-degree, 9 second-degree murders. He got life sentences for all of the crimes. His insanity plea was rejected. And then over the course of his life, he was denied parole 8 different times. So prosecutors were able to put enough evidence in front of the jury saying, no, we agree he was delusional. We agree he was a drug user, but the circumstances of these crimes certainly show that in at least 2 cases they were premeditated, and in the 8 others, he put himself in that situation and didn't control his impulses and murdered those individuals.
That's very interesting because I think it's very, we're talking about insanity pleas, right? We could probably do a whole episode on how courts view insanity pleas. It's not easy to get one, right? You have to be very mentally ill. And some.
Well,
and
you got to be able
sometimes-
to prove that
Exactly.
the person did not have the capacity,
Mhm.
did not have the capacity to know right from wrong.
Right.
In this case, though, you have him going back. You have him hunting down Jim Gianera, right? He's
Right.
hunting him down for a reason. Whether the reason is sane or not doesn't matter. He's hunting him down for a reason. He goes back to Kathleen Francis's house. So
Yes.
he actually is hunting her down. And then he's bringing a weapon and going back to the campsite. He's bringing a weapon to the confessional. He's bringing a weapon to the co-ed killing. He's bringing a baseball bat to the first killing. And he's got a .22 rifle in the final killing. So I think prosecutors are able to show it's not either or. Either you're delusional or you're not. You can be delusional, but you can still know the difference between right and wrong and commit these crimes.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So what do we know at this point? They have Ed Kemper. He's killing certain, co-eds. And then you have this guy. By the way, I saw a picture of this guy. His eyes just look dead, John. I mean, he looks like he is not with society. But, did they talk? Did they end up in the same prison where this was like simultaneous trials?
I love when we have these serial killer interactions, right? When one serial killer is mad at another because he claimed my victim. It's not his victim, it's mine, right? Or where 2 serial killers are working at the same company at the same time, in the same. I just find this absolutely amazing. So Kemper, 8 weeks after Mullin, gets arrested. Totally different type of serial killer. We'll go into him later, but very organized, very methodical, strangled his victims, hunted co-eds night after night after night, had a very specific hunting ground, totally different than Mullin, right?
Right.
So now they're both in jail together and they share an adjoining cell. Kemper who is this huge mountain of a man that hunted down women, brutally strangled them, stabbed them, killed them, said that Mullin was the cold-blooded killer, said that Mullin hated people, and said that Mullin killed for no good reason at all. So he kind of discounted his delusions, kind of just said, yeah, he's delusional, but he didn't have a good reason. Not like me. I had a good reason. He killed for no good reason at all. I just find this fascinating.
Didn't Ed Kemper, wasn't he a little afraid of him too? Didn't he say like he's the crazy one? Like this guy is off his rocker a little bit, nothing like me.
Yeah, at one point, he said that he was afraid of Mullin and how hateful Mullin was. But then at another point, he said, I kind of understand him because we're a kindred spirit, because we both spent time in institutions. Just fascinating. He said Mullin had a lot of pain inside, a lot of anguish, a lot of hate, and he addressed it to people he didn't even know, and he didn't dare to do anything to people he knew. So it was almost like Kemper going, well, this guy was kind of a coward. He killed people he didn't even know. Oh, my gosh. When you have one serial killer critiquing another one, absolutely amazing. What I found interesting, though, I mean, the whole case is fascinating. So Kemper would get mad because apparently Mullin liked to sing.
Okay.
Kemper would be trying to watch TV and Mullin would be singing loudly. Kemper threw water on Mullin to shut him up.
Oh my
Then,
gosh.
like prisoners are wont to do, Kemper somehow got a hold of some peanuts. And when Mullin shut up and was good for a while, he'd throw him some peanuts. And so Kemper said he was able to behaviorally modify Mullin and make him sing when he threw him peanuts and shut him up when he threw water on him. So I don't know. You take that from one serial killer to another, but I just find those interactions fascinating.
Oh my God. Okay. Who was the is it Pavlov's? I don't know. Yeah. Is that
Pavlov's
it?
dog.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. That's kind of what that reminds me of. Fascinating, John. Okay. Well, Herbert Mullin dies at age 75 in 2022. So just a few years ago, died of just natural causes in prison. And like you mentioned earlier, he was denied parole 8 different times.
Yeah, because, he kept coming up and saying, well, wait, they said I wasn't a harm earlier. I'm not a harm now. I'm on my medication. I'm institutionalized. And the parole board just didn't buy it. This is a guy that was totally delusional, that said that he could stop earthquakes and stop the world from being polluted by killing people and having human sacrifices. And that's what he did. 1 person at a time, 5 people at a time, 4 people at a time. Absolutely, absolutely ridiculous. And so, what we see here is a serial killer that ended up with 11 murder convictions, never was paroled, and spent the rest of his life behind bars. Now, as we put a cork in this edition of our True Crime and Wine podcast, remember, you can follow us on our socials at JJ True Crime and Wine, and you can purchase our great Casaro wines at CasaroWines.com, CASSARO wines.com, so that you can enjoy great wine and profile these serial killers along with Brandy and me. Now, I think that wraps up our business for today. And of course, I want to thank my co-host, Brandy Diamond, for joining me on this journey. And as always, our great producer, Lauren Bedsole, back in the Corsicana Command Center for helping to make this show possible. And I invite you to join us on our next episode, where we're going to feature a female serial killer who murdered men for money and was nicknamed Arsenic Annie. I'm John Matthews, and thanks for joining us for True Crime and Wine. Salute.